Continuing coverage of election 2010, the Republican candidate for Pennsylvania's U.S. Senate seat is holding on to a small lead. That's according to the Rasmussen Report survey, which shows 45% of voters support Pat Toomey, 39% support Congressman Joe Sestak, 6% say they prefer another candidate in the race, and 10% are undecided. The question is, does Pat Toomey even pay attention to these polls? Well, his answer might surprise you, but this Republican candidate for the U.S. Senate is serious about jobs and taxes. Just a couple of things we talked about one-to-one as we took a walk down State Street in the shadow of the state capitol today. I'm here with GOP senatorial candidate Pat Toomey, who's been kind enough to take some time out of his busy campaign to talk to us one-on-one today. How's the family, first of all, Pat?
Doing great, thanks.
Doing well?
Very well.
New baby you have?
New baby's doing great. He's 3 months old and really thriving.
A little bit about your past. You're a Harvard grad, am I right? Did well, worked hard.
Yeah.
Got through Harvard, joined the financial business up to about the early 90s. Your opponent has tossed out some ideas that maybe you knew a little bit about the financial meltdown that headed us into this recession. He's called you a Wall Street senator. How do you feel about that?
Well, I hope that Joe will get back to the substantive issues that face us. There's been some distortions going on. I came from a blue-collar, working-class background. I was a very lucky kid, got a great education, got a chance to go to Harvard. And in the 1980s, I worked in finance, and I learned a lot about capital markets. And then I spent, almost 10 years in small business. I owned and operated restaurants with my brothers. We hired people in Pennsylvania. We had a couple hundred employees at a time. So that was a very, very valuable experience for me. I learned a lot about what it takes to create jobs, to grow this economy. And it's probably some of the most important lessons I learned was how to make a payroll and what is it that motivates people to start a new business, because that's what we need right now.
New businesses and people need jobs. And as we walk along beautiful State Street here and you see people of Harrisburg, a lot of people out of work, they want jobs.
Right.
What's the most important thing that they would see change if you're elected?
Well, right now, the reason we don't have a strong economic recovery, the reason that unemployment is still over 9% and this economy is doing so badly is precisely because of the policies coming out of Washington that are preventing job growth.
All right, we've got to cover the subject of the TV ads. There's been a lot of controversy over maybe you're on the attack too much. My question is, are we going to see a Pat Toomey ad without Joe Sestak's name in it? If I'm advertising David Letterman and I keep putting Jay Leno's name in, I don't know if that's going to be so effective.
Well, half of all the ads we're running right now don't mention Joe Sestak at all. That's been the case since we went up on air, and it continues to be the case today. But I will tell you, I think voters deserve to know about the very clear choice they have in this race.
Of course, we've got to talk about the polls. They've been pretty much in a dead heat. Today's Rasmussen poll has you up a few percentage points, but basically a dead heat. Do you worry about these polls every week? Do you take them seriously?
No, I don't worry about it much at all. There's still 3 months to go. There's a lot of time. I think most voters probably haven't really focused on this race and haven't made up their mind. But I will say, I think we've got a lot of momentum. I think the energy is on our side. People don't want more of this agenda, and that's what Joe Sestak represents. I think they've been very receptive to my message of job growth, fiscal discipline, and bringing some balance to Washington.
Okay, if you just walked up to me on the street and you had 30 seconds to tell me why I should vote for Pat Toomey, what would you tell me?
Well, if you want to have more jobs, if you want to have a stronger economy, and you realize that it comes from the private sector, not from ever bigger government, that's reason number one. Number two, if you think that we really shouldn't be saddling our kids with unaffordable deficits and debt, I'm not in favor of those kind of deficits, and Joe Sestak's voted for them. That's reason number two. And number three, if you think there ought to be some checks and balances in government, instead of one party having complete control, you think both parties ought to have a seat at the table, that would be reason number three.
Republican candidate for Senate, Pat Toomey. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your campaign to join us for this one-on-one interview. Thank you. In case you missed it, we interviewed Toomey's opponent, Democrat Joe Sestak, on Wednesday, and you can catch his interview as well as the entire time I spent with Mr. Toomey today at CBS21.com.
Well, you could say